and you look at modern UFO things, the result is people are going around believing there's something out there that's more advanced than we are.
So you could look at the correlation between advanced civilizations all throughout history, and their religions, right? These big religions, and is that it's, I think historians typically look at it like the religions come out of these great civilizations, but you could also look at it in the reverse and say that the great civilization became what it was because of what happened to them, which formed the religious beliefs in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And remember what...
so it was a sort of a sharing of knowledge or something like that ultimately resulted in a civilization becoming awesome.
Yeah. And remember what Göbekli Tepe made them change about the way that they viewed the rise of civilizations. They used to say first there was the city and then there was the temple.
Yeah.
But Göbekli Tepe, now they're like, no, the temple comes first.
Yeah. It's the temple.
And I started, this is way out there, but I started thinking about how Göbekli Tepe is a bunch of stone circles, and I'm like, those are landing platforms. I don't know. I'm not going full ancient aliens here, but...
Those are guacamole dishes. And the triangles are chips.
Yeah, there you go. Avocados and chips, people. So, yeah, I don't know what to expect from what's going to happen. And most of you who are going to listen to this are going to listen to it after the fact, after this Senate hearing thing that's going to take place in June this month. So I'm not going to make any predictions, except that I can say that whatever's going to take place, it isn't going to be an acknowledgement of how weird this phenomena really is. I don't think that that's possible. It's, maybe people can view it as baby steps, but there are tens of thousands of cases and that's just in the United States. There are many, many more than that from around the world. The one thing about Jacques is he has tons of them from France and Brazil. Like lots of UFO researchers do look at other cases around the world. But
I'll make a prediction.
Okay.
I think what's going to happen is that a lot more people are going to start reporting sightings.
Yeah.
Right. Which is probably already happening.
It's already happening. Yeah.
And that can have a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Because so many people are going to start coming forward that will go back into the flip side.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh my God, all the crazies came out. And look at what's happened.
Right.
And they'll just dismiss it as a bunch of quacks.
And Jacques has this scaling thing that he does.
And nobody's going to want. It's like right now you've got this, we've been talking about this, that because serious people are looking at this and being publicly looking at it, other serious people are willing to look at it, right? That's been one of your big points about this whole thing.
Absolutely.
When all of the crazies come out and start going on shows and reporting and doing all this stuff, and I'm saying that from the perspective of the skeptic, the serious person. None of the serious people are going to want to be associated with that group, right?
Yeah.
Right now, it's like, oh, okay, it seems like safe ground.
Right.
So anyway.
So you're right. So that's a possibility that because, like my prediction is that the disclosure cannot be a full one because it stands too far out. Like I think that our civilization, at least the Western stuff, in the mainstream or whatever, they're at the point now where they could accept aliens, possibly visiting here. I mean, I think a lot of people would be okay with that as long as they aren't dangerous.
A lot of physicists would not
be okay with that.
That idea, yeah.
Because it implies that they're traveling here. Yeah.
Yeah, breaking physics.
Well, yeah. Okay, so let's take it another way. People
sending
are
probes, maybe.
Yeah. People are talking about there being full AI.
Yeah.
Partially explaining how they can make these maneuvers that would tear apart anything inside. But it still doesn't really explain it because some of the maneuvers that they make would tear apart any known material that we have.
Right.
So their material science at the very least has to be really good. People are speculating about, the way the craft move. I don't know about any of that. But I think people in general are okay with the idea that there is aliens or at least alien artifacts here. And those people will look at it from the thing of like, this started when we started blowing up nukes. You know, to them it starts in the 40s or 50s. But the phenomenon is much older than that and much stranger. And there are plenty of accounts from modern people that are they're well documented, and they're not fringe cases. This isn't like somebody like, I woke up in my bed or I went to sleep and then I was abducted. There are cases of people disappearing in view of other witnesses, and then being picked up hundreds of miles away a week later, having had no idea where they were. You know, it's like there are cases like this. Travis Walton is one of them. There's plenty of others when you go through the books. I can't give a rundown, but really when you read Vallee's books, he just has case after case, and he's making his case about this. He's trying to show you, like, let's first understand how strange this phenomena is, how often it's this strange, how it seems to, he talks about how it seems to inject absurdity into the experience on purpose. Mm-hmm. You know, he's like, you look at this account, and at first you're like,
sounds like a dream.
Yeah, at first you're like, all right, the craft is in the sky. You're like, this could be technology. The craft lands. All right, now we've got landed interesting technology. The alien comes out. Now it's a little strange because the alien's weird. It's a biped. It can talk to us. It doesn't have a helmet. It can breathe our air. You know, and then there's some strange ritual of exchanging of items, or it says ridiculous things, or it tells the person what are clearly a bunch of lies. You know, I mean, sometimes they've lied just as blatantly about what time it is. You know, there's like the one alien asks the guy what time it is. He tells him it's 2 or something, and it's like, you're lying. It's 4 o'clock. It's definitely not 4 o'clock. You know, and then it leaves. And you're like, what was that about? What was the purpose of this? Like, what is the reason? And it's about injecting, you know, and Jacques' like, is it trying to tell us that time is irrelevant, you know, or is it just injecting absurdity into the experience on purpose for some reason? Like it's doing some kind of psychological manipulation possibly, or who knows? I mean, who knows? But the encounters are weird, and it's like they're weird on purpose. And when you look at large numbers of cases, you can see that the pattern is weird, and you can see patterns emerging from the weirdness. You know, like one really interesting thing I found was like the Lonnie Zamora. He sees an egg-shaped craft. So this is another avocado, but it's standing on one end, right? He describes it as an egg. It lands. He sees a couple of beings, and they take off. But meanwhile, he sees a symbol on the side of the craft, a red symbol, and he draws it, takes a note. And Lonnie was a policeman. Okay. And the first thing he does after having the experience is he asks to see a priest. Like this is so you that kind of gives you an idea of
right,
like
yeah,
what the way it affects people. Right, he asks to see a priest. Meanwhile, some researcher much later looks at the symbol that Lonnie had drawn that he saw on the side of the craft, and the guy's like, "Wait a minute!" And he digs through his records and he finds out that that's the ancient Arabic symbol for Venus. Right. So what is it? What is that? What is that about? Like, you know, people are like, well, it came from Venus. Well, do they live on Venus? Are they just messing with people? Some of them did tell people that they were from Venus and Mars.
Or is that where the Arabs got the symbol?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't know. So.
All right. I'll try to lay this out. About the spiritual versus nuts and bolts thing. If I believe in the spirit realm, right? I believe in the existence of spirituality, whatever. So if it really exists, if there is some, you know, if there's that realm, right, alternate universe, however you want to look at it, that sort of coincides with our own, but we are in some ways connected to it through our consciousness, but maybe not really well connected for the most part. But nevertheless, if that universe is also here, right, all around,
yeah,
then it seems like if we have even a minuscule connection to it, then it's possible that other biological beings could have greater connections to it. Some people have better connections to it than others.
Yeah.
So across species, it's plausible that some could have really, really good connections to it. Or perhaps mostly be there. And in part be here in this realm. And so if you were developing technology and this was like a well-known to your species part of your existence, not a question that we all have like us, right? The humans have this idea that, there is this aspect, but, it's kind of weird. It's hard to really pinpoint what's going on. But if you had that really solid connection with it and your entire civilization did, then your development of technology would encompass those things too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'd build stuff out of nuts and bolts, but also you would build it in concert with the abilities of the other realm.
Yeah.
And your ability to manipulate things in that realm, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the weirdness could be due to our inability to perceive perfectly from that other realm.
Yes.
And I was thinking, making the connection to like a dream. These things are kind of strange, like dreams are. You're riding on a whale. You're a cat. You have a trident.
Yeah.
It's like, they're really strange. And sometimes there's a really well laid out story in a dream, but then there's just some crazy odd thing that just doesn't make any sense in the middle of it somewhere.
Yep.
So it's like, maybe that's always happening to us in these sort of encounters because it's very much like a dream state, that connection. That's why people have the imprinting type of, or whatever you call it, the co-creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're not actually able to perceive the spiritual aspect of it properly. And so it's more an interpretation in their brain, as to what they're seeing, as opposed to actually seeing it for what it is.
Right. And even then, it leaves physical traces, which is really interesting, right? It's like,
but I mean, there's nuts and bolts craft,
yeah,
right?
Physical,
that's
physical objects, whatever they are.
Physical objects, yeah. So what I'm saying is if you were a society or a culture or a being that had this like intense connection with this alternate realm, you're building stuff in both worlds, together,
right? And so so maybe
the motion of the objects could be like our instruments pick it up doing that, but it's not actually doing that if you consider both worlds,
right? So this would be the the interdimensional, like another way to say it, maybe more like a I don't know if scientific term is the correct word, but what you're describing.
I'm trying to couch it in terms of science, but that's really hard.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is spiritual, but I think that like, the both worlds thing, like it could be described as interdimensional, the other realm is whatever it is they're from. And there are ideas that
but I mean, ancient peoples describe their encounters as visions.
Yeah.
In many cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and there are visions that are described in modern UFO cases as well.
That's what I mean.
What makes it really interesting.
Like they have an encounter with a nuts and bolts something or other.
Yeah.
But they also have visions at the same time.
Yeah, they see pictures in their heads, or they see pictures that appear to be out there, but maybe aren't exactly.
Or they pick up the information just telepathically.
Yeah.
So
there's also
a lot like a dream.
Healing is associated with, like anomalous healing is associated with many UFO cases, like modern ones. People are healed of wounds. When the light hits them, they get all these pictures in their head. They're frozen. They're paralyzed. They hear buzzing noises, and then later they realize that some wound they had or some ancient old injury is gone. Doctors don't understand. Like cataracts disappear from their eye. It's like it's common, and it's like this is the same in religious stuff. The healing that takes place, and then in some cases, visiting the site can cause continued healing after a while. Over time. And then there's this connection with crop circles is interesting because if you go back far enough in modern stories, they used to call them saucer nests. Okay, when they first started seeing these things, they're basically flattened circles of grass or marshy areas, and they call them saucer nests because And they were associated with somebody seeing a craft land or take off from the ground there. And they go out and they find a big circle in the grass. And then there's all this anomalous stuff and people take